This is another archival upload of some of my previous mix critique videos. I apologize for the vertical format that this video is about to switch to. This is 236 to 240. This mix was sent in by Chromatical. The whole intro was way too long for sure. It feels like it's hitting right once that drum loop comes in, but before the drum loop, it's just kind of jarring. It's kind of weird. Like it just doesn't quite feel right. All right, so it sounds pretty good once we got past the intro. Like it sounds relatively full. I'd say there's probably a little bit too much going on in the high mids. Like it is starting to get a little bit harsh there. Now you sent me two different versions of this. You sent me the mastered version and the unmastered version. And you said with the mastered version, there was a lot of clipping and harshness. I'm currently listening to the unmastered version. And honestly, if you sent it to a mastering engineer and they're having problems with the harshness, you might want to hire a different mastering engineer, man, because they should theoretically just be able to like take out a little bit of the high mids and compress the shit out of this, and it would probably be fine. In fact, just to prove the point, I'm going to do that real quick just to see what happens. Doesn't seem like anything that a mastering engineer should be having problems with. So you guys tell me in the comments which master sounds better. Here we go. Here we go. This mix was sent in by Garrett. Alright, right off the bat, it's super harsh. There's a lot of really painful high mid stuff going on here.
Touch her shit, but it's feeling it. Just might relax with some bags and crash out with the bitch. Cause she said she got that coat, if she wanna go back to her crib, so I'm like, fuck it, we taking out. So I let her know and take it out.
Okay, dude, I'm sorry. I cannot listen to any more of this. Like, everything above 1K needs to come down a lot, especially in the like 2 to 5, maybe 6K area. Like, it's really overpowering and it's just straight up painful. Other than that, like, the low end sounds pretty good. It sounds relatively full in the mids. It's just everything above 1K is boosted way too much and it really fucking hurts to listen to. This mix was sent in by Michael. Alright, so it sounds like we got a big smiley face EQ going on. Sounds like we have a good amount of like sub frequencies, like down at like 50-ish hertz. Sounds like you got a decent amount going on. The bass have like a fair amount of low mids, but other than that, the mid-range as a whole feels really, really empty, and you definitely have way too much going on in the high end. Like when that tambourine hits, like that is like very harsh, piercing, like way too much top end in a lot of things on this track. Also, the drums and the bass have like a relatively good volume compared to each other, but everything else seems way too low. Like the piano's kind of in there, but again, it's lacking a lot of the mid-range, so it doesn't sound like it's as loud as it could be. And the guitar that's in there is like buried in the background. We can barely hear that. Again, it just sounds like you completely gutted the mid-range, especially on the piano and the guitar, but also kind of everything else. Like the bass sounds like it's pretty much just low mids and like high mid attack. It sounds like the middle of the bass isn't being filled up. Now drums, you generally do want mostly just low end and high end and nothing in the middle, or not much in the middle, but pretty much everything else, like you need that mid-range. That's the majority of the track. This mix was sent in by Johnny.
You're sitting by the phone and no one's home.
Okay, first of all, the left-right balance of everything is really off because you have that like one acoustic guitar and you kind of have it panned like 40% to the left. The right side sounds really empty comparatively because of the guitar. If you're only going to single track that guitar, that's got to be right up the middle too, man, because it's throwing everything off.
Is it time you're chasing now?
once everything else comes in. The bass is probably a little bit too loud when it comes in compared to everything else. But overall, it's an interesting sound. Like, it's not really pristine audio quality, but it's a vibe. So like, it's cool. I'm enjoying it. The one thing I'm not really feeling is the drum ambience. The way the rest of the track sounds, I feel like right now the drums, it might be the room you recorded in or it might be a reverb you added after, but it sounds like the drums are in like a really shitty small room. With the way the rest of the track feels, I would say that the drums either need to be like totally dead, like no room ambience whatsoever, so it sounds really tight, or it needs to sound like it's in a massive room and they're like really far away from you. Right now with this like mid-sized untreated room sound on the drums, it's kind of killing the vibe for me. This mix was sent in by Manuel. Cool ambient fade in the beginning, but it's way too long. Time after time. Sounds like you've taken out a lot of mid-range frequencies, especially compared to the ambient rise in the intro. That had a lot of mid-range. That sounded really full. So when we get into the actual track and you're missing a lot of mid-range and a lot of instruments, especially the guitar and the bass and even the vocals a little bit, honestly, it sounds quieter by comparison, even though like you can see on the waveform that it's louder, but it sounds quieter by comparison because the mid-range is so much less full in the actual track compared to the intro. You also got a lot of really nasty mid-range in the kick. Like it sounds super, super boxy. You got to take that out. That's kind of overpowering the mid-range of everything else in a bad way. And you're definitely lacking quite a bit in the low mids somewhere. Also the upper mids, so like the 1K to 5K range sound way too loud compared to everything else. That might be why everything feels so empty. I've said this a million times. It's a balancing act. If you have one frequency range that's boosted higher than it's supposed to be, everything else sounds like it's not there. So when you have the combination of not enough mids and too much high mids, you end up with a really thin sounding track overall.